this out later. Hello. Good evening to everyone. Excellent. I see a whole bunch of people here. That's very exciting. Familiar faces. Hi, and welcome to For the Love of Comics' first live stream in quite a while. I'm sure that most of you, at least most of you people who are right now here already, know that Ashweta and I moved about a month or so ago. I mean, it's hard to keep track of time anyway, and in the middle of all of this chaos, I think it was about a month ago, but we've moved. We are in a new apartment flat. I made a quick video on unpacking some of the books behind me over here, and it's just been mullet. Yes, it's not really I know, I guess it looks like a mullet. I'll just have to live with that for right now. I had to go and take a quick shower because this fascinating lighting experiment that you see around me, using some incredibly sophisticated tools and a lot of know-how, which I call pasting cellophane on your ceiling lights. Really, it was way too much physical exertion for someone like me. So I had to jump in the shower just before this stream. So therefore, pardon the hair, but I think it's better restricted this way than it has been. Hello. It's great to see everybody here in chat. I don't think I've put the chat up on the screen, but I will. But it's so good to be back. I've been itching to make videos, but my equipment, this room setup, and of course the other stuff that has to do with setting up a house, etc. And we're not on vacation, so we also have my wife and I. We still have our day jobs. So trying to get to things at the end of the work day. I mean, it's great that we can work from home and that we are at home, but it's just been slow going. So the unpacking of what was it? Ashweta will give the right number, but about 100 boxes of books. The unpacking of those books has almost been completed. There are 8 boxes left, and there's a good chance that 1 or 2 of those 8 boxes aren't books. There's not a good chance. There's a chance that it's 6 boxes of books. So we're almost there. I wouldn't say the finish line is in sight, because this is, of course, just throwing them up on the shelves and making sure there's somewhere for them to rest. The arranging of them, I've posted a couple of photographs of the way things are arranged right now on our YouTube page. Yeah, this is not a hairstyle. It's just wet hair, and then I've got headphones on. So everyone's going to think that this is something intentional. But yes, this is that. I guess the Superman mullet. We can call it that for right now. But once it dries, it's closer to an afro, the way it goes. So depending on how long this live stream continues, you may see a metamorphosis in front of your eyes. We've got what was I talking about? Yes. So this is a live stream that I wanted to do as a way of getting back into making videos, which I'm still not 100% happy with. There's the echo in this room is something that, like, it's okay if there's a microphone right here, but as those of you who watch my videos know, that I don't usually have a mic right up here, and I'm still trying to figure that stuff out. I'm trying to figure out the light and where I want the camera, because this is also the same place that I have this is also my workstation, as in for regular work, and my video editing station for the YouTube channel, and the place where I shoot my videos. So I think I've more or less got the face front stuff for my videos set. The problem that I have is with the top-down shots. I used to have a little bit more room in front of the table in our old place, and so I was able to set up the camera in a particular way to look down on the books. And again, you know that I love doing those videos in which I can show the books from top down. I like the over-the-shoulder shots too, but it depends on the kind of video, and I like doing those edition comparisons in particular from the top down, and I still haven't cracked that over here. We've got a couple of videos planned that need that kind of shot, so that's one of the things that's really been bothering me, is I haven't figured that out yet. And then there's other technical stuff that I've been wrestling with, but I've been working. Say something in Bengali. My Bengali is so bad. I am a Probashi, so people have been making fun of me all my life anyway, especially Bengalis from Bengal. So it's gotten to that point where I only speak Bengali around other Probashi Bengalis, so that there's no judgment. But maybe I can relax and get there at one point of time. What topic is there for this live? Mahir asks. Yes, there is no topic. This is one of the most agenda-less, free-form live streams there is. Part of it is just to say hi to everyone and say hello and get back on YouTube, which I've been missing. As I said, I've only posted one video in the last 6 weeks or something like that, so that's a long drought for me. So I wanted to get back on the horse, so to speak, and I thought this would be a good way to do it, chatting with everyone and seeing everyone's faces, names, and chat and things like that, and answering questions, because we also, in this 6-week period, we also crossed 10,000 subscribers, which is it's a fantastic thing that I never thought would happen with this channel. I still don't quite believe it, but it's great, and everyone's like, okay, you've got to have a celebratory video or something like that, and I'm just like, I'm so excited about it, but I think the best videos to make are just more of the videos that people signed on for, rather than make a celebratory video. So I should just be making videos on, and there are so many requests that have piled up, and I love these requests, because as again, people who've been watching this channel for a while know that there have been a number of our videos have come from viewer requests. So and there are some very interesting and challenging suggestions that have come up that I want to work on, and there are I would say there's a pipeline of about 5 or 6 videos that I have more or less complete as far as the concept is concerned, and I know that I want to make them. I've wanted to make them for a while. A couple of them have come up more recently. A couple of them I've been sort of nurturing for years. So I really am itching to getting back to making videos, but I want to make them a particular way, so I need things to be right. So there's no topic for this live stream except to catch up with everyone, answer a couple of questions from new viewers, from old viewers. In the Raymond Briggs video, you said you bought his kids' books. How did you like them? I loved them. I loved everything that I have read. There are there's a gravitas to his adult works that his kids' works don't have the same thing, but they do have fun echoes. I did think the Father Christmas sequel was a little more absolutely overtly for kids, laugh out loud, funny for kids. The Father Christmas original, I feel a certain sadness is in there, but I loved everything that What have you been reading? I've been reading a couple of things, nothing really big and heavy. I've gotten a couple of big books that, again, I've been waiting to sort of settle down on. A couple of the small books, maybe I'll show them later over here. In particular, I just read, and I posted about this as well, Chibi Usagi, which is a very quick read because it's for young kids. And I just finished reading that. That was excellent. I read Shabute's adaptation of Jack London's To Start a Fire, to Build a Fire. I was looking for that earlier, but I couldn't find it. I've put it away, and that's one of the problems with these new setups, is that everything is chaotic, and whenever you take something out, you end up putting it back wherever you find the space, but that's not necessarily something that's logical in any way. I mean, I know that my shelving system has been a little illogical. For some people, they wonder why I do arrange things. If you haven't seen my comics shelf videos, I have them arranged in publisher, author, but also certain things where I sometimes classify them by genre or by the type of writing, and sometimes purely autobiographically, as in I read these books together, or I bought these together, or they're part of a similar kind of list making in my head. So even that system doesn't exist right now. So the other day I was looking for a Paco Roca book, and it's become where I've got them in 4 or 5 different sections, and there are a couple that I still haven't unpacked. So it's quite chaotic, and it's a little worrisome. But when are we going to get that new grand tour? Thank you very much for all the congratulations. Off the Shelves, thank you. Off the Shelves is I was going to mention Off the Shelves a little later, but since he's here right now, everyone should check out this terrific comics channel where we've been chatting for a while, and he makes these videos that are just well edited and have got a nice script to them, even though it's off the cuff. It's not like he's scripted it. I mean, or maybe he has, but it feels very natural. I really enjoy watching his videos. We have a shared love of Usagi Yojimbo, among other comics, and he just makes good videos. I like good videos. I like a good editing and a good presentation of things that celebrate things. And one of the exceptions to me not making videos is actually I have made a quick short video that will appear on his channel. I'm not going to tell you, I don't want to steal his thunder, but I'm not going to tell you what that video is about. But if you head on over there in a couple of days, there will be a big massive video on his channel, which a number of comics YouTubers, us who have this channel for our hobby, have contributed to. And I was very, very happy and very proud to have been asked to do the same. So that's one video that I have gotten to make in the last 3 weeks, and that also was good because it gave me a little bit of an opportunity to test this room and the lights and things like that. Oh, wow, so the questions are pouring in. I thought I would just preamble for a while and chit chat about because I think one of the questions that most people or many people would have is, what have you been doing? And the answer to that is, we've been moving, we've been unpacking. Ashwita in the chat is also talking about I think I posted this same thing, is that it seems that I've just been unpacking for months and months and months. All we do is we get up in the morning, unpack some boxes, get to work, take a little bit of a break for lunch, then think about unpacking a couple more books, finish work, unpack, go to sleep, maybe play a video game, which is our way of winding down. So there hasn't been a lot of heavy reading, although, as I said, I do have a few books here that have arrived in different ways. What type of videos are going to come out? Is Calvin and Hobbes still on the radar? Calvin and Hobbes is definitely on the radar. Well, I think I want to make a complete Calvin and Hobbes video, but I want to talk about the different ways to read the complete Calvin and Hobbes, and not just the multiple ways. I mean, I just don't want to talk about that box set that I have. I did want to talk about each of the collected books as well. I mean, this information's out there, but I just wanted to do that in a video instead of just be about a box set. So I needed one or two of those collections, because I had many of those collections, but then since I bought the big box set, I stopped buying those. So I just wanted to get a couple more, and I wanted to get them used because it's a double dip, but just for the video. So that's my lame excuse for why I haven't yet gotten, but that's definitely on the books for this year. Do I have a favorite Love and Rockets chapter? Yes, I have several. Although I am very partial to the start of Gilbert Hernandez's Love and Rocket stuff from the Palomar stories. I mean, there's a lot of stuff after that that's very accomplished, and there's things that Jaime has done with with his characters over the years that I think are just among the most superb long form storytelling in comics that I've read, as far as watching characters grow and develop and change and things happen to them. But Heartbreak Soup, I think, is a sentimental as well as literary favorite of mine. So I think it's kind of it's strange, because especially with very long running series, you don't think about the absolute start as being, it takes time for people to find their voice and get going. But I think Palomar stuff started superbly and with a bang. I know with the Maggie and Hopi, the Loka stories, it's not quite the same in that way. Thank you, everyone, for the congratulations on the. Yes, Off the Shelves is a joy to watch. In case you missed me talking about Off the Shelves, do check out that channel and a number of other channels I have on my YouTube page. I don't know where it is for viewers, but I have a bunch of channels that are comics YouTubers that I really enjoy watching, and I think are very worthwhile from the point of view of the discussions they have, the conversations, the kind of insight they bring into the readership aspect of things. I think there are many channels and many huge big channels that have a thing of this is the most recent thing and these are the latest editions of these kind of things, and they're very valuable for a number of reasons for knowing about these things. And there are a lot of channels, I think, that focus on the art and the drawing and the art styles, etc., of comics. But I think as a reader of stories, there's an entire subset of channels that I enjoy. So we would say that I'd say that check out that list, and I'd keep adding to that. And that's also to say that if you have a comics channel, or if you have something that you'd like me to take a look at, by all means. I don't consider it spam unless it's like just multiple things. But if you send something to me, if you send me a link, I'm always checking out people's channels. And people write to me with channels with 10 subscribers or not. It's not about the size, it's about the passion. So there are these channels that I would put in a word for, and some of them I talk about all the time. Let's see now, what kind of questions have I missed in my... Oh, wow. I'm just scrolling back. Will you be looking at Conan or Tarzan over the next film? And there's another question about Tarzan. Now, Tarzan is an interesting... I haven't read that much Conan, and I think I've talked about it a couple of times. Everything I've read has been very impressive, but the ocean of Conan is so huge. And Tarzan, I have a very particular, I think Joe Kubert doing Tarzan is something I have a very particular strong memory of from my childhood, and I have some stories that I absolutely love, and I've recently been able to get my hands on some of these stories from my childhood, and I was worried about them if they would sort of hold up, and they really held up. And not just Tarzan, but Korak stories as well as, and I found Mark Evanier and Dan Siegel had done a series of Korak stories for international publications. So these were not actually published in the United States. These were for the UK, and then the company, I think it was Marvel, I'm not sure, also licensed it out to other publishers. And I'm guessing that that's how we in India at that time read a number of these stories, because they were licensed to be printed in India. And of course, it was many years later that I found out who Mark Evanier actually is, and I didn't know that these stories were written by Mark Evanier. So it was a great archaeological expedition for me to find these stories. I got a couple of these Tarzan UK magazine-sized comics with backup stories of Korak, and the backup stories are the ones I got them for. But yeah, so I was thinking about maybe looking at Tarzan, but I do have. And everyone will know that I do like to look at a bunch of different kinds of comics, and I also sometimes feel that there are certain comics that get a lot of attention, and I mean, rightfully so, but then I become less inclined because I feel, well, what am I going to say? Or, what new thing am I going to say? Or what am I going to bring to the table that hasn't been brought to the table already many times very well? So I do sometimes lean towards saying, well, no one's done videos on this person, or no one really talks about these comics, and I enjoy making those. So sometimes people will often ask me about like big famous comics or big famous series, and I completely understand why. And that's another reason for why I enjoy these live streams, because sometimes I can just answer questions, or we can just have quick discussions, and sometimes these discussions that are happening in the chat are terrific, and I'm not even needed. So that's also good. But there is a balance that I always try to figure out. Is that okay? Well, what about this? And when I started this channel many years ago, I had a list of videos that I wanted to make, and many of those videos were because I just loved those comics, and not enough people talked about those comics. And it's like Usagi Yojimbo is one of them, and now it seems that Usagi Yojimbo is really popular, and that's fantastic. And I was just like, I never understood why more people weren't talking about Usagi Yojimbo, but 3.5 years later, I seem to find a lot more people talking about Usagi Yojimbo. So that's great. I mean, that's not to say that I think the most views on this channel come from my Tintin videos. Yeah, and I wanted to make Tintin videos because I didn't see people on YouTube making videos on Tintin comics. They made on Superman and Batman and Marvel, DC, American comics, etc. And it's the same thing with European comics. I mean, I see a lot of people making videos on certain things, and I love those, but then there are other things that I think should be treated the same way. So, and then that's one of the reasons why I've really enjoyed watching so many YouTubers who focus on those kind of things. And that's why Earl Grey was a big I keep saying, because a big inspiration, because I was like, look, there's someone who's talking about being a reader and talking about a personal experience, and then talking about comics that are not just the Marvel and DC or Dark Horse kind of comics, although I of course love those comics as well. So all of that to say that yes, I will be looking at a number of different things, but I'm always trying to balance out. And then there are people always, like even in the chat right now, people mentioning comics that I haven't gotten to, or mentioning creators who I haven't read. And the Discord, the Friends of FtLoC Discord server is a gold mine for that. I mean, there are a number of people here. Hello, you know who you are. Who are regulars on that server, and from all over the world, and they talk about comics, and they talk about books that have I've never heard of. So my list keeps getting bigger because I want to read all of these things, and there are pages being shared. So that's another. If you're not a member of the Discord, please come and join us. As I said, it's a superb resource, and a fantastic place with very smart, erudite, well-read people that I learn from, and that affect my to-buy list or to-read list in incredible ways. Did you pick up Caudry's Crash Site? No, I have not yet picked up Crash Site. I've not yet picked up a number of books. Do I like Tintin and the Broken Ear? Yeah, I like Tintin and the Broken Ear. I think when I was younger, the Broken Ear wasn't one of my favorites. I think over the years, I've grown to appreciate it a lot more, the structure of it. The one thing about Tintin and the Broken Ear is that for many, many years in my childhood, I thought a tortilla was an omelette, because that's what that book said. So if I have one bone to pick with that, I mean, I guess it could be an omelette, but most of the time I've known it as a flatbread, like our roti or paratha or whatever. So the fact that I thought tortilla means omelette because of that comic is a thing I obviously still carry with me. Let me see if I can put this. If this puts the chat box up on this Um. All right, Ashweta, I'm going to say that if there is an interesting question that I have missed, please repeat it for me, because they are going by pretty fast, which is terrific. But that's what happens in a live Q&A. is that I've got to actually keep. I'd highly recommend Phoenix. Phoenix is a series that I just haven't been able to get my hands on. I don't understand why something that reputed is out of print. But it seems very hard to get, and because I don't read digitally, or I don't read a lot digitally, I have started reading web comics, and as I keep saying, the things that are formatted for the internet. It's not just the page layout that's been transposed onto a PDF or something, but something that can be properly read and engaged with digitally. I have no problem, but I don't have a very large tablet, and my desktop screen is an ultra wide screen, so reading things that are narrow or one page it's difficult for me. So I haven't found any physical copies of and there are many such books, that I think that I want to read in the physical format, that I can't get my hands on for a number of reasons, although people do help me out, and they send me comics, as I will I might talk about later. Yes, join, as Tommy says, join the Discord at your own peril. No, don't say peril. We are enablers, and it's a great server. But it does end up costing money. But I was going to spend that money anyway, and I think that's the case for everyone. You have a budget, and you're not going to be able to spend more than, I hope not. But what to look for, what to, and just to, as I always say, to have in the back of your mind, because when people share pages and when they talk about something passionately that they've loved and they've enjoyed, it sticks in your brain. So you could be in a bookstore one day, someday in the distant future, or you could be browsing online and something could just ring a bell. And I think that's the brilliance of these kind of discussions and these kind of conversations, and especially when I know that I have people who I share common tastes with, and not just in like, oh, they like this book, I like this book, but I like the way they talk about it. I like what they, so even something I didn't enjoy, someone did enjoy, but the way they talk about it makes me interested, and so therefore I will listen to them when they suggest something else. It's not just like, oh, you liked something I didn't like. It's not that superficial. It's more about the thing that it brought up in you, and so therefore if this did and I didn't, for me, that's okay, but I still appreciate that thing being articulated in that way. So that's one of the things that happen. Have you read Berserk? I have read Berserk, the first deluxe edition. I have not gotten to the second deluxe edition because that's stuck in the United States, and it's been 2 years since I was supposed to last go and visit my family, and that's why I can't continue. Do you have all of the Josette and Jocko? I have none of the Josette and Jocko. In fact, the only one that I've actually read is The Valley of the Cobras, a very long time ago, and those books are hard to find. So I'm not sure if they're good or if it's just nostalgia, or when I was young, I didn't want to read anything other than Tintin or Asterix as far as the European albums are concerned. Not that there were many of them around, but Josette and Jocko felt like, and this is completely prejudiced, but it felt like a lesser thing. So I never pursued them. I never had them in my own library, even as a child. So I never grew up with them, and now they're hard to find. So that's tough. Any recent manga you're interested in? I'm not very good with recency. I don't usually. I'm getting better, and because of this channel, because of the Discord, because of some groups that I'm a member of on Facebook, on WhatsApp, I am getting a little better at knowing what's recent, but I usually just go for things that people say are great or that I've enjoyed work, and I'm always finding, like the Chabute book I talked about, it's been out since 2018. I only got my hands on it now. Well, it wasn't available here, I think, but I didn't even know about it until many years after it was published. The manga that I've read recently have been more volumes of The Bride's Story by Kaoru Mori, which I really enjoy. But I haven't read the last 3 volumes, which I just got because I didn't know that volumes 10, 11, and 12 were out, so I'd missed 3. So that's probably going to be the one that I that I finish first before going on to the other thing. What has the move made you look at your collection in a different light? Ooh, this is a good question. Like realizing something is missing. We won't talk about that. Or the opposite, perhaps finding a new focus for the near future. I have. That's a good question. It's almost. I could make an episode on this question, although I could make an episode on any question. I think I'm good. I thought I was good at not going after something just because people are going after it. You know, I thought I'm very sophisticated, know my tastes, etc. I think when moving, I was like, hey, why did I buy that? You know, or am I ever going to read that? And I really, for me, and I think this is maybe true for people who have large libraries, collections, whatever. I'm trying not to use the word collection. I've decided that I'm going to start saying home library, and I'm only going to say home library because I don't want to say collection. Not because there's anything wrong with the word, but because I seem to find it a limiting term for what I want, and I also need it to my and this is related to that, is that in spite of how independent and idiosyncratic I thought I was, I have found a handful of books that I don't think I'm going to enjoy reading, or books that I've started reading, didn't enjoy, put back on the shelves, and then I'm going to get to them one day. But I mean, and there are many books that I know that I'm going to get to one day, and there are many books that I'm not saying that every book on my shelf is a book I've read, and I don't think that's that's not the reason to have books on your shelves either. But there are books that I don't think I'll ever read, and it has made me wonder why I got them in the first place. You know, is it like, oh, it's a new edition, oh, limited edition, although it's not limited edition, but it's those kind of things. Is that, were you worried it was going to go out of print, or people were saying it was going to go out of print, or people said it was fantastic and you got it in spite of yourself? Sometimes I try things out that people recommend and I don't like them, and that's fine, you know, and I know that. But then there are other things which I'm just like, you know, you're not going to like this. Why did you pick this up? Did you pick this up when it was, you know, just because it was on sale? So I think some of those hard questions are things I need to ask myself. And another thing that I think came to mind is, I think it's time that I started culling some of my collection as far as a lot of my superhero trade paperbacks are concerned. It's like, it's not that, oh, I haven't read them, or it's like I'm not going to reread them. I think there are many such things, and I'm running out of space, and there are other books I want to read. And it's also the case for some you know, fancy schmancy hardcovers, indie publishers, etc. It's a nice thing from some Kickstarter or something like that, but I'm not going to read it again. I'm just going to have to figure out how I'm going to swap them out and use them to clear space and provide funding for books that I do want to get and books that I do want to read. Also because of the kind of double dipping or edition comparison video fuel that I buy. What is your favorite slice of life comic which you have read recently? Oh, that's a good question, because I'm trying to remember if I have read. Yes, John Porcellino. I don't know if you. I think though. I was reading From Lone Mountain, and I got 3 John Porcellino books just before I moved, and there are 2 more somewhere over here. So I was reading some Porcellino, fueled by Noah Van Sciver's video on Porcellino. I'd read some Porcellino in anthologies, especially there was a story called there was one particular story called Diary of a Mosquito Abatement Man, which was in the Best American Comics or the McSweeney's. I don't remember which one, but one of those anthologies that had come out, and it it stuck in my head. I mean, that art style, but that storytelling, and I was really glad to discover that that there were these new editions of his works out. So yeah, that was the last one that I had. Hi, Hamza Gardi. Nice to see FTLS. Nice to be back. Nice to see you back. I haven't seen you around in a while. Did you read Phantom and Mandrake comic books? When I was young, yes, I did. I grew up reading a whole bunch of different kinds of comics. So, and you had a lot of Indian comics in those days that were reprints. So Indrajal comics, anyone from India, will be familiar with Indrajal comics. Indrajal comics were a big part of my childhood comics reading. So it was like Tintin, Asterix, Indrajal comics, which had Bahadur, who was an Indian hero, but Mandrake, Phantom, all the Defenders of the Earth, and then we had Amar Chitra Katha and the mythological stories, the historical stories, the biographies, so on and so forth. It was a Classics Illustrated. It was a nice hodgepodge. They're famous in Australia. Oh, I haven't read Phantom and Mandrake if their adventures have been continuing. I think I tried to read Dynamite Comics had started all of them again, and I think I read the first couple of issues of their Flash Gordon, and that was good, but I didn't continue, and I never picked up a trade. I loved Phantom. I mean, Mandrake was okay. I mean, it was fun. And, when you're a kid, I mean, at least I was omnivorous. So I would read everything. I mean, it didn't matter. I may have had some judgment somewhere, but I would still read everything. So Archie comics, Mandrake, Richie Rich, Casper, all the Harvey comics, they're all the same. They're all the same as far as my enthusiasm for consuming them is concerned. But Phantom was terrific. And Phantom was also one of those comics that I would really like looking at certain artists or certain depictions, the way that it was for the Disney comics. Like, you could tell, and with Archie comics most of all taught me about different artists take on a single character, because I think with what happened with Spider-Man and things like that, we would get just very random issues, and so and also there was a certain kind of house style that I would see, or I would see definitely the same artist or the same style issue after issue, even if they weren't connected. But in Archie comics, you would have a digest or a double digest, and they had old and new stuff. So you had stuff from the 50s and the 60s, and you had stuff from the 80s, all mixed in together, and 70s, so on and so forth. So I liked that in Phantom as well. I liked seeing the old style, then the more modern style, and then a slightly newer style. But it's all nostalgia. I looked at some Phantom. I picked up a Phantom comic a couple of years ago, and it was okay, but it just didn't do that for me. And I was just like, oh, am I allowing nostalgia to tell me that what you read when you were young was so good? Tarzan comics was superb. I mean, that I know stand up to, I mean, the Tarzan comics that I read, they were really dark. Some of them were very violent. I'm surprised that that I'd read them when I was a kid. Nothing gory or graphic, but there was definitely and a darker edge to a lot of the Tarzan stories that I read. And they were, I think, of all of my non-superhero reads, Tarzan was my favorite. He would like find mammoths or prehistoric creatures in the jungle. There would be other species or other civilizations. There'd be people living under a lake. It was fantastic, that pulp writing. I'm guessing a lot of that was based on Edgar Rice Burroughs' stories, but I'm sure that some of those things were also very nice mixture of supernatural, sci-fi, fantasy, things you wouldn't expect in Tarzan. So those were my favorites. Have you read any of the adventures of No, I have not. I will make a note. I will make a note of that. Have you read Once Upon a Time in France? No, I have not. One of the best European. That's an entire continent. Wow. Okay. All right. So Once Upon a Time in France. That's another thing that I'll have to add. I've been reading Dykes to Watch Out For. It's taking forever. Yeah. There's a. Oh yeah, it's a long series because it's been going on for so many years, and there are so many volumes. And I think do I have any advice? I mean, I don't want to tell people how to read, but usually if I have something that is one huge long series, unless it's extremely propulsive, as in it's, everything ends in a cliffhanger or something. And I remember many years ago, the Vertigo series used to be that way. Why the Last Man was a galloping read for me. Any issue, every issue you finish, you want to read the next issue. Fables was that way to a large extent for like the first 10 trade paperbacks, but there were, it was good for me that these things were already out, but then you had to wait for the last couple because you'd caught up. So, but unless something is absolutely propulsive from that narrative point of view, I'm fine with reading 2 or 3 things at the same time, and you can have something that you can finish in 1 or 2 sittings, which is usually the case for a standalone, graphic novel. So I would say the way I would do it is I don't usually read 2 long series at the same time or 3 long series at the same time. If I'm going to read multiple things at the same time, if I'm going to do that, it's probably going to be one very long series which can be read in a very which can be read slowly, because it could be like Dykes to Watch Out For. It could be short stories, it could be anecdotes or vignettes and things like that, and you could read that, and that would also be the case for long-running newspaper comic strips, the complete Peanuts. I don't expect anyone to sit down and read the complete Peanuts cover to cover, 50 years of publishing dailies and Sundays in one go, but you would like to have a chronological idea. So you read it and read maybe 20 pages, 30 pages, and then read something else the next time you're reading, and then say that, oh, I'm only going to read Peanuts after dinner or something like that. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah, that's the way I would that I would do it. Do you and your wife have day jobs in the comic book industry? No. We do both work in publishing, but not comic books. I work in academic publishing, so print and digital education resources, and I have a joke in one of my other videos, but I'm not going to repeat that here. And she's a freelancer, so she works in children's publishing, in fiction, in textbooks, a whole bunch of different things. She's got a lot more range than I do. What do you think of the new Usagi Yojimbo color comics under IDW? I like them. I mean, I've read Usagi Yojimbo in color before. There were color specials, even all the way back in the Fantagraphics days, and with Dark Horse, the entire Mirage run was in color. So I don't find it to be sacrilegious Usagi in color. I do like Usagi in black and white a lot. I think the line work, I'm not an artist and I don't really speak in art language, but the brushwork, the way the art looks on the page in black and white is just very rich. So I think color in general tends to flatten things out a little bit, but of course there are spectacular uses of color in a number of. There was a recent Pedrosa book, a fantasy, the first volume, which again, you can really use color fantastically narratively, but when it comes to some of these favorites of mine that are in both, Bone is in color and black and white. Usagi Yojimbo is now going to have new color versions of its old black. I shouldn't say always, but most of the time I prefer the black and white. But Usagi Yojimbo works really well in color. I know that Tom Luth, the colorist, has retired, and so it's going to be someone else coloring. But I think the recoloring of the old stories was someone else. Scott Pilgrim, I think, is one of the series that I thought I wouldn't like in color, and and shouldn't be in color because it's manga and it feels like manga and it looks like manga and all that. And they did a good job of the color, and I am glad that they made it a larger version and hardcover, and I think there are paperback versions of it, and I think it's almost a different kind of comic in some ways. So that's one of the successes in which that color creates a sort of parallel thing to the original. Will you do a video about Gone? I have not read Gone. I have heard about Gone, but I don't believe. I'm trying to think if I ever read Astray. I think I might have read some sort of a FCBD or one of those things in which it was they're sharing space with something else, but I've never actually read Gone the series in any way. So that is something that I should look into. More questions. What makes Asterix special? A lot. That's there's a question for an entire episode. But everything. I really enjoy the art and the writing together, and I think in my Asterix videos I have mentioned that I haven't enjoyed some of the story. I haven't read all of the stories that have been done after Goscinny, and definitely not the ones after Goscinny and Uderzo. And a lot of people have told me that some of the more recent ones are actually quite good. And so I think it's the combination of Goscinny and Uderzo that makes Asterix special. But I'm only speaking from the point of view of someone who hasn't read the brand new stuff, so maybe the brand new stuff will change my mind. But I also think, and I mentioned this in my video, I also think Asterix is a very warm-hearted book. It's quite open and embracing. I know it sounds a little funny because they make fun of so many cultures, and the people might think there are stereotypes in there. I mean, and I don't know if growing up, I didn't know if the stereotype of a Corsican is that they're this, or I don't know if reading Asterix made me think anytime I met a Corsican they would be this way. So I'm not really sure if if they propagate dangerous stereotypes or something like that, but I've always found their ability to make fun of themselves as well as other people is actually a form of really it made me want to travel, and it made me want to see other places and meet other people. So I think that's pretty special as far as the effects of a comic are concerned. What do you think of Uzumaki? Ooh, that is, I was just talking about Junji Ito in one of the comments exchanges that I was having earlier today, and there are some Junji Ito stories which I think are not. I mean, the artwork is always compelling, but the scripts aren't always there. But Uzumaki, I think, is one of those where the artwork and the script both work very well to achieve what it wants to achieve, that absolute sense of unnerving. And the viewer I was chatting with today in the comments, he mentioned, I think it was he, sorry, they said reading Junji Ito makes the reader scared to turn the page, and I thought that was a really good way of typifying it, because it's kind of like when you're playing a video game and you don't want to do something because you know what's going to happen, and it's sort of there in a movie. I think in a movie it's a little more distanced, you don't want the characters to go in there, but reading Junji Ito is closer to that visceral experience of the video game, of where it's you know, and you don't want to turn the page because you don't want to see what's going to come on the next page. That's a pretty good way of describing his work, because that is the way it affects me. Which are your favorite Tintin books? I have a video on this, and I don't think my list has changed since that video, so you can seek that out. It's my personal top 6. I don't rank the 5, they're just 5 favorite books, but my number 1 is my number 1, and my number 1 is still my number 1, and it's been my number 1 for ages. Best of Enemies by David B. I have to read that. I've only read a couple of books by David B. Epileptic, of course, and Hasib and the there it is, Hasib and the Queen of Serpents, which I thought was gorgeous. It's things like that. It's like, when am I going to make a video on Hasib and the Queen of Serpents? I mean, it's like a thin little book, and it's superb and it's beautiful, but this is what happens. I need to make a video a day in order to get to all the books that I want to talk about, and the way I want to talk about them. I have not read anything by Kakizaki. I get a lot of manga recommendations, and I'm trying to figure out if there is a more logical way for me to keep track of all of it. Most of the time is just a question of memory and hearing certain names often enough. But I have discovered a number of people who are, I've talked about Taniguchi so many times, but Taniguchi is just one of my favorite comics creators. He's one of those people that I feel made stuff for me, for me in particular, especially. I really liked Sunny. I really liked Ping Pong. So I've got another favorite brewing over there. I need 2 or 3 more books to make it happen. But I'd love to have a proper list in which I can at least take a look at some of the most worthwhile or the most recommended works. And that's another thing, is like, I have no problems. I'm not a completionist or a purist in many ways, although I do have many of the collector kind of things. I can read volume 1 and not have to pick up the rest of the things, and I can also read something from the middle if I can't find something else, if it can be read from the middle. Like, I don't have to start from the beginning unless the plot needs you to start from the beginning. So when people ask me where can I start with Usagi Yojimbo, it's like a lot of things, even Lone Wolf and Cub. I don't think the first time I read Lone Wolf and Cub, I read it from the very beginning. I think it was just a random volume I picked up at a friend's house, and I read it and I loved it, and it's fine. It's like, the Incredible Hulk TV show or something. It's like, I'm going from town to town and I'm encountering people and I'm doing this classic sort of storytelling, and you don't have to have it from the very beginning. And I think now I'm going to have to think about it, but even at the beginning, it's a flashback story that you get, in the second story or the third story. It's not there at the very very start, I think. So I'm fine with picking up, like, people will recommend things and suggest things, and I'll just pick whatever I can find up and see if that works for me. And if it works for me, I'll pick up more of whatever I can get. It's only when the plot and the story's progression needs you to have the next thing. That's why I don't read Berserk Volume 3, because I want to read it in order. So what was I talking about? I was talking about suggestions. Keep them coming. Right. Right. So Ashwita is answering questions by herself. Right. Okay. Fine. I buy books I've already read online to support the author. Yeah. I mean, I think and there's a lot of different thoughts and thinking about this. I buy books. I buy books in the regular channels, and authors are supposed to make money from that. I mean, I know how discount structures and manufacturing and royalty rates and all that stuff work. So sometimes it isn't what we're thinking. For example, authors get paid on what the publisher sold it to the first, the distributor who bought it. It's not for whatever. So if you find a book and that you buy and it's heavily discounted somewhere, I think, and somewhere the author, unless it's a remaindered copy, that's a different thing, but somewhere the author has been paid for that, and they've been paid at a rate in which it went out. Now, if the publisher sold it at a 40% discount to a distributor, and then the thing gets marked up to price and you get a 10%, 20%, 30% discount, it's okay. The author already made royalty on that 60%. So unless you are pirating, you are not taking money away from the author. So anyway, I don't want to get into piracy and all of these things, but yes, I think if we want to see comics, then we should support comics. I mean, I don't really understand piracy the way it's justified by people. When they want an iPhone, they want an iPhone. They don't want a knockoff. They want that. So they have money to spend on gadgets. They have money to spend on things that cannot be replicated and given to them. And so therefore, the things that can be replicated and given to them take the hit, because this is consumed in a... Right, I'm not going to get into that. Right. Okay. So when I say I'm going to cull, I should say because of the shell says, could you cull the contract with God Curators Edition, which is a lovely edition, of course. So when I say I'm going to cull, I mean I am going to start thinking about how I plan to cull. That's the epiphany that I have arrived at this point of time. So it's a first step, but it's definitely not there yet. I really think one of the biggest problems today is shipping costs. At the same time, I have people who send me books, and it's incredible that they've sent me books from across India. They've sent me books from across the world. I have, in fact, 3 or 4 boxes that have arrived in the last month, and it's astonishing to me, that generosity. But it's also, I know what the ship, and sometimes when I see the label of how much it cost them to send me this box of comics, I feel really bad. I feel it's horrendous, but that's the way it works anywhere. The shipping is so high that the cost of the book is really not the problem. The problem is the cost of the book put together with the cost of the shipping. And then you have, amazing things like our duties and import taxes on things like books. So there used to be a time when you didn't have imports on books. I'm old enough to remember that time, but so just sadness. Samuel says, I'm also going to sell my superhero trades in the near future. I could use the cash to buy more intellectual comics, sure, or absolute editions, or of the same superhero comics. I just think that I think that I like buying trades, and I like buying trades because I like reading and finding out about something. And the thing about the trade paperbacks was that they were never cheap, and in India we never had things like in stock trades, or a huge used market in which you get things at bargain prices. Even $10 10 years ago was a lot of money. I mean, it's a lot of money now as well, depending on how many trades you want to buy. But just of late, trade paperbacks have gotten to be so expensive that it just doesn't make sense for me. And I think over there, reading online, digitally reading, I'm not talking about piracy, but I mean Comixology and things like that. They make a lot more sense for that thing that I used to do of buying cheap trades to see if I like the series and see if I want to follow the series. And of course, when I started buying comics, I just started working a job, so trade paperbacks were the only things I could afford. I mean, I could get 3 trade paperbacks for the price of 1 hardcover, and there's no way that you would ever choose a hardcover at that kind of ratio. So I think that's still the right way to start, and that's the right way to go. I just think that because I'm not going to reread those particular trades, a lot of my other comics are also paperback, so it's not like I want to upgrade only to hardcovers or only to fancy editions. I think about 30% of my home library are used books and ex-library books and books in all kinds of condition, because the most important thing for me was to get a chance to read it. And if I found a used copy, and some people in the chat will know that there were certain booksellers in India who would buy these, one in Amazon US, you see books for a penny. So they would buy this and they would sell them here after the shipping and the discount and all that stuff for like $4 or and it was great. It was fantastic. I'll pay $4 for something, and it doesn't matter if the cover's a little ripped or it's dented or it's still the same description, used acceptable or used good, and they'll tell you that it might have scuffing or it might have wear and tear, and I just think that if I'm not going to reread something, there's already a question of why I'm keeping it. But sometimes I am not going to reread something and it's in a very fancy, nice edition, and I'm like, okay, I'll keep it because it's a nice, fancy edition. But if something that I'm not going to reread in a non-fancy, non-nice edition, it's like, then what is even the point? It's not even working as decoration anymore. thoughts on Lone Wolf and Cub? I love it. I love Lone Wolf and Cub. I have two videos on Lone Wolf and Cub. So what is Lone Wolf and Cub, or why is Lone Wolf and Cub the perfect first manga to read? I think is the video. You can look for that. That's my take on Lone Wolf and Cub, and looking at a couple of things. And I also have a video on the gallery edition of Lone Wolf and Cub that Dark Horse brought out, which is just a superb edition. Let's see. Do we have other questions? Indrajal Comics used to publish Rip Kirby too, absolutely, and I really enjoyed Rip Kirby. I didn't find, for some reason, when I was young, I didn't find that many Rip Kirby, and it was a little more sophisticated. It was a little more adult in some ways. So I guess it wasn't around in wherever we used to get the children's comics from or something like that, but the couple of things that I had read stuck in my head so much that I've now been looking and getting, as you know, those Rip Kirby volumes that I think it's IDW putting them out, and they're really good. I really enjoy them. Don't you have any story of your own stored in the deep trenches of your mind? They're not that really deep. That you'd love as a comic? Maybe. I don't. I mean, like, I think comics as a medium are a superb. It's a superb medium for telling all kinds of stories. You know, that's why you have superhero, science fiction, and autobiographical, navel gazing, all of them like dominating in some way or the other, because it's just so flexible, it's so versatile. So I think any story people have could make good comics. I mean, it all depends on the execution. But if there's because people have asked me if I'm interested in writing comics, and it's like, yes, I am. I'm interested in writing. I'm always interested in writing. I just need what is it called? Talent, discipline, those kind of things. Those are the things that I need to work on. Obviously, it would be fantastic to collaborate as well. I really like collaborations. I think there's just a different spirit to them. There's a different energy to them. This live stream, for example, would be a lot better if I was talking to someone else as well, you know, because I've been on in the audience of a number of different live streams, and I'm always so jealous. Like, look at them, they're all talking to each other and they're discussing and they're exchanging their views, and instead, you know, I get on here and I'm just talking by myself, which is why it's great to have so many questions and so many comments come through. It makes me feel a little better. But I think I have noticed that many, I'm looking around right now also, of my favorite comics are by writer artists, people who are writing and drawing. There's just something, and it's not like that's what I seek out. It's when I think about the most fantastic comics, my most memorable comics, my most favorite comics, a number of them are written and drawn by the same person. So there's something in there that I think is particularly good as far as artistic expression is concerned, something very unique. However, since there can never be me, I also like the collaborative aspect, because I think it allows people who can't draw an ability to tell their stories in this fantastic medium. There are people who I know someone who taught themselves to draw just so that they could make a comic, which I think is just a mind-boggling sort of achievement. I don't think I have that kind of ability, so I would love to collaborate with people, but again, I need my own self. I need some discipline, and I need some talent and inspiration and a whole bunch of different things. So will you buy any comics tomorrow on Prime Day? Tomorrow's Prime Day? I have no idea. These days, as far as India is concerned, I don't buy that many comics on Amazon anymore. I mean, every now and then, especially if there is a heavy discount and if some kind soul alerts me to them, which the kind souls always do, but after, you know, they've done their picking and they've taken what they want, then they're like, hey, did you notice this was on sale for 80% off? If it's a huge sale or something like that, then I'll get tempted into it. But I tend to use either Bookswagon, or I buy used copies, or I try to I can't buy things in the US, which is what I used to do. I used to buy, and then I used to go visit my sister, and I would bring back a whole bunch, and I've just stopped doing that because her house is overflowing with my packages, and I feel ashamed. So I'll take a look, I suppose. Although tomorrow's Monday, I've got work. I don't know if I'll get to browse Amazon much once I get there. Oh, that's a question for Ashwita. All right, Ashwita, I hope you're fielding all of the questions that are directed towards you. Wait, where am I? Am I just lost? Have I... Pratay Ghosh, thank you so much. Thank you very much for that. That's very generous of you. I guess my chat is completely out of sync of where I am and where I'm going. But thank you, everyone, for all the congratulations and all the love and all of the, it's just fantastic. I read every comment that is posted on the channel. People reach out to me over email, people chat with me on Instagram, although I don't run the FtLoC Instagram or the FtLoC Twitter. I have good friends who manage these things for me because they're much better at them, but they let me know when there are messages, and I get on there and I respond. People email me, and it's fantastic. It's mind-boggling to me, as I was saying, not just the 10,000 subscribers, but the, because that's just a number, and it's about who's watching the videos and who's engaging with the videos, and it's that engagement and that conversation. I think, when I asked Ashwita to be the moderator on the chat, she was like, "What do you need a moderator for? You've got the best viewers in the world. Who do you think is going to get onto your chat?" She could have just finished the question there, but who's going to get on there and start abusing people or something like that? So it's just fantastic. So thank you so much. Have you read any Jerome K. Jerome Bloch? I have read one Jerome K. Jerome Bloch, the one that Fantagraphics published. No, wait, it was IDW. The one hardcover brought out in English that is easily available. I know that it's a series, and I'd love to read more, but that's the only one that I think it was IDW Eurocomics that brought out the Jerome K. Jerome Bloch story that I've read, The Shadow Killer or The Mystery Killer. I don't remember that one. And it was Fantagraphics who brought out the one Gil Jordan comic that I've read. I wish there were more of them. I want them to be like the Corto Maltese stuff that IDW has put out on the Euro. Just give me a lot of them. And I know that a couple more Gibrat books are coming out. I think someone told me about them. What else? Oh my goodness, I'm so behind. I didn't realize I was kind of stuck on one screen. Sorry, everyone. All right, Ashwita still answering. Thoughts on The African Caravan by Churma? The first chapter of The African Caravan is out. It is, for those of you who don't know, it's an Indian webcomic that is going to be serialized. It's a non-fiction travelogue about a bunch of artists from Europe, from Asia, and from Africa who took a road trip from South Africa to Egypt and made art along the way. And that's really all I know about that project, because I've got to read the comic to find out. And the first chapter is out, and I really enjoyed it. It's got a nice and I think I was saying this in the Discord server also, it's got a nice loose feeling to it, and there is this thing in the story where they're like, all right, we're just going to go and do it, and they're like, what's the plan, where's the money going to come from, how are we going to handle this, and they're just like, you know what, we should just do it and we'll just figure it out as we go along. So that sort of chaotic, dangerous sort of vibe of how are we going to do this, we'll figure it out once we're there, and then running into issues and running into problems. So the story has, the first chapter doesn't even start the road trip proper, it's just about the prep and the way it comes across. And I thought that was very cool. Though I had a little bit of a, and I had a few anxious moments going, how are they going to do it? Where's the money going to come from? How are you going to do this? And that's also, I think, part of what makes it such an adventure, at least for some person like me, stuck very safely at home. You can't imagine like just sort of taking off. You've got to like have the itinerary, or you've got to have the ticket, you've got to have the visa, you've got to have these things already done. So I thought it was great. I can't wait for the next chapter. Coraline book versus movie. Interesting. I thought that movie was really good. I think that is, and also I got to watch it in 3D, and I think that is one movie in which 3D is superbly used, narratively speaking. I mean, it really means something to the story. It really adds something to the story. I mean, I've enjoyed 3D movies. Gravity is a terrific experience. But Coraline, the book is it's a favorite of mine in in a sort of nostalgic attachment also. And it's been a while since I've read the book or seen the movie. I think I like them both. I don't know if the movie overdoes the button stuff, which I think was very creepy in the book, because it was kind of just there and then it comes back and at the end, or maybe I'm remembering the book wrong. You got inspired by my video to arrange your bookshelf. Excellent. Now, if only you could come and arrange mine, because they're certainly not arranged. But what I have over here is pleasing me, because sometimes when I see movies or videos and I see people's bookshelves, there are people who have like very neat, absolutely perfectly measured bookshelves, and they look great. They just look fantastic. They look utopian, but then there are people whose books are just absolutely somehow crammed in there, and some are sideways and some are leaning this way, and they look beautiful too. I mean, they look beautiful in a completely different way. So I think I've had bookshelves. I've it's not like I have only omnibuses or only library editions or things like that, where you get that absolute evenness because they're all part of the same sort of production specifications. I have variation, but I've always kept them. I'm looking right now at my Tintin hardcovers, and it's like, oh, it's pleasing. Here's all the different stripes. So I'm not like the protagonist of the Now of Brown, who has to color code her Tintin spines by color, arrange them by color rather than chronologically. But I am enjoying this kind of chaotic, like, books stacked all over the place. So I'm wondering, like, does one really need to rearrange? And then I look for a particular book and I can't find it, and I'm like, yes, one does need to rearrange. I will try to make a tour of my home library once I have everything set up. I'm always worried about light and whether I'm going to have enough light, etc. But this room is much smaller, and so therefore I should be able to light it easier. So this room is one thing, but if you've seen the last video I uploaded, there are bookshelves all over the place, just like there were in the other flats. So it'll have to be a sort of tour of the apartment. A summary tour. I'm not going to do another 16 episodes. It took me 2.5 years to get the last 16, and I still didn't finish it because there was another section of the comics cabinet, the magazine sized comics, and I never made that third part. And now, well, maybe I'll make a video of stocking that third part. A Distant Neighborhood is a masterpiece. Yes, it's one of my favorite comics. That was the first Taniguchi I read, and my father's journal is here sitting on the shelves. Indian comics, graphic novels review and analysis. Yes, this is a good. I mean, I have a one video I did in spotlighting some Indian comics altogether. There have been times in which I've talked about Indian comics, like one Indian comic in a list of other comics that I'm talking about as far as recent reads and new acquisitions are concerned. I'm very interested in the Indie Comics Fest. It's a thing that really appeals to me, but there isn't, I mean, it's not about which country a comic is from. It's about the quality of the comics and the quality of Well, I mean, what the publishers want to do and what the publishers want to achieve and how close they get to it. I think that's important for me. I think there are creators who work for hire. There are creators, and you know, and the creators will work on anything that someone will pay them to do or someone will publish. They will work on those things. It's very hard to just have your own vision, be true to it. So I put a lot of these things on the publishers. So there are a number of comics in the Indian comics market that I'm not that interested in, and it's not because of anything else other than that I'm not interested in a particular type of presentation, or I'm not interested, and that's true for American comics as well. There are lots of American comics that I'm not that interested in. So I think what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that I would love to do spotlights on Indian comics, the ones that appeal to me, because that's what this channel is. This channel is about. It's not about what has come out recently and is it good or bad. I'm not a, I don't do reviews of recent releases. I don't do reviews in which I say whether this is an A, B, C, or D, or assign a numerical number or things like that. That's just not what I'm interested in. What I'm interested in is taking something that really appealed to me, that really worked for me, and sort of praising it for a while. So it's just a standard thing, or a high, like personal standard. I don't mean to say like high standard or whatever, but it's a personal thing. So if something really appeals to me where I want to talk about it, I will. I think that's the reason why, because these videos, I mean, there's live stream too. I had to, put blue cellophane on things, but these videos, they take effort and they take energy, and I'm a very lazy person. I don't think people, I mean, Ashwita knows, but other people don't know how lazy I am. So for me to get off my butt and to set up the camera and to set up the lighting and then sit down and edit it and then work on the sound and the color grading and blah blah blah, all of that stuff for a video, because I like to do it that way. I like videos that look and sound like that. It's just got to be special stuff. So it's nothing against a particular type of stuff. It's just about whether something appeals to me or not. And I think there are I think that's true for everyone, so I don't know. Let's see. Do you like Archie? Yeah, I do like Archie. I loved Archie when I was a kid. I when I met Americans, they were perplexed at how much Archie Indian kids had read. At least at that time, they were just like, nobody reads Archie. I was like, you are wrong. We love Archie. We read a lot of Archie. But particularly, I think the 60s, 70s, 80s stuff. There were some people, Harry Lucy, Dan DiCarlo's art. I loved looking at Dan DiCarlo's art. I loved the Harry Lucy stories. The energy, the vivacity they had was terrific. And also, I think, it's a very different world today. Again, as I keep saying, I'm a very old person. So there was a time when in India, the economy wasn't open, and it wasn't like everything that is made in America or the United Kingdom or Europe, etc., comes in, it gets imported, and it doesn't. So it was a very different kind of life, and it had the economy, blah blah blah. I mean, people will be able to explain it much better than me, but it wasn't milk and honey, land of plenty, blah blah blah. It was kind of resources were limited, and your exposure was limited, and you had one television channel on TV, and it stopped at 8 o'clock. This is the way that people who are 80 or 90 talk in the United States, but people in India can talk that way at this age because it wasn't that long ago. It was in 1991 that things started changing. So before that, what did you know about America? The way that people knew from movies, from Hollywood and Madison Square Garden and advertising and all of that stuff. What we knew was from comics. So Archie showed a life, or it's like you couldn't understand it. You're like, what? They're teenagers? What are you talking about? They've got cars. What are you talking about? Which magical land is this? So I think my thinking about Archie is very different from like judging it on sequential storytelling, and although now I can still appreciate some of those things, and the reason why certain stories are stuck in my head is because they knew how to deliver a gag, they knew how to do a reaction take. There was there were things of extreme value, I think, in Archie that helped me start and create my foundations for comics vocabulary. So I'll always have a very soft spot in Archie. And recently, I think the kind of things, or not recently anymore, but the kind of stories I saw Archie do as a sort of revisionist take, I thought were quite interesting. I read Archie versus Predator, which was an interesting thing. I have not read Archie versus Punisher, but Afterlife with Archie was the one, unfortunately, was the one series that I thought, this is brilliant, this is very good, this works really well for Archie fans and people who've grown up reading Archie, and it really works for, well, I don't know, maybe it works for non-readers, but I thought Afterlife with Archie was very, very good. But then we never got that second volume, which I'm waiting for till today. So that was what's my postal address? So write to me, and let's chat. I just ask people to send me a message on Instagram or Twitter, or email me at FTLoC comics at gmail.com, and I'll chat with you over there about addresses and things like that. I have, as I was saying earlier, I have boxes that people have sent me, and I was thinking about doing a sort of maybe unboxing in this video, but I couldn't get my phone camera. I don't know if you guys want to know this, but too bad, you're going to get to know it. I couldn't set my phone camera up the way I had it in my last live stream. My last live stream was about recent reads. That's the one that I talked about, Becoming Unbecoming, Mega Hex, Torpedo, a number of those comics, Sentient. So I had that up here, but now with my new arrangement, my laptop is on the other side of the table, so I can't actually get that second camera going. So maybe I'll do a separate video. I will say that there were DB and Tommy both, DB and Tommy have sent me a lot of candy, which is a tradition I think that DB started, that I'm absolutely on board with. It's super, but they sent me so much candy, and the boxes were like super packed with chocolate that I had to unbox them and put them in the refrigerator because of the heat, etc., etc. So I'm not going to get to do a pure unboxing, but I do want to show you the comics that have been sent to me. Just amazing stuff. There was a live session as well, yes. And I actually, if as far as Indian comics is concerned, the Indie Comics Fest is a thing that is an annual thing that happens, and it happens in 6 cities, I think, across India. So Kolkata and Chennai, I think, Delhi and Bombay, I think. What are the other places? People in the chat can say where it happens, and that's a thing that I was really, really enjoying, and I went for a couple of years, and then for the last 2 years nothing. So it is happening online, but I really do want to look at indie comics, and I really do want to talk about indie comics. In fact, one of the videos that I've been planning for a long time has to do with indie comics, and I've been trying to work out the shape of it, which is more my it's going to sound really egotistical, but it's just more like, what do I want to see from indie comics? What are indie comics? What do they matter? Why do they matter? Do they matter at all? And what I would like to see from them. And it's something that I've been thinking about, but I'm not sure if I have the confidence or the articulation already to do that. Hello, Gore Vidal is here. Greetings from Texas. Greetings right back at you, sir. Gore Vidal is another one of those people that I was talking about earlier, whose channels I really, really enjoy, bringing a completely different texture to the appreciation and the reading of comics, of being a reader, as I was saying. It's just superb. You should check that. Check his channel out. There's also this narrative thing that he does that I really, really want to rip off. I just, again, don't have the talent yet. Do you think Tintin in the Congo still holds up? I don't know if it holds up. If you view it with the context of its time in mind, I don't think it held up at that time. I don't think Hergé liked it that much. I don't think he wanted to do it. I think, again, I'm not a Tintin expert. I am, most recently, I joined a Facebook group on Tintin fans. And man, there are some Tintin scholars out there, and I've been learning a lot about something that I thought that I know a decent bit about. But these guys are next level. But from what I know, it's not a good book. I don't think it's a good book. I do understand taking things for when they are written, so on and so forth. And I think there's a lot of stuff that I have read that I can understand was, this, and like looking at Asterix, for example, when even today, they haven't changed the depiction of Africans, for example, the physical representation. I think it's interesting how Asterix represents them as far as their speech and their behavior is concerned, which is just like everyone else, which is a lot. It just shows you that it's not racism from that point of view, although you might and you would correctly say that the representation is incorrect. I think there are a lot of other problems with Tintin in the Congo, more than just the representation of them physically. It's the entire storyline. It's the entire kind of, and it's not like the Joseph Conrad Heart of Darkness. It's not like that where, what is it? Is it an anti-colonialist approach? I think it's pretty flat out like, here, this is supposed to be entertaining, and then there's not just the racism, there's the cruelty to animals and like drilling a hole into the thing of a rhino and putting a dynamite stick in there, etc. I mean, it's just not appealing from the point of view of comedy. It's not appealing from the point of view of adventure. So I don't like it that much. I think it's an interesting artifact to look at, and I think it's worth having, and I don't think it should be out of print. I don't think it should be banned. I think it should definitely exist and should be easily available so that people can read it and understand that brilliant, fantastic, excellent stuff can still come from something that starts like that. That people can change their minds, they can change their styles. So I really think that it should be considered part of the thing, but I can understand why a box set that is trying to appeal to children, and this is something I've said in the comments of some of those Tintin videos as well, I can see why Egmont doesn't want to have it in a box set that's supposed to get new readers into Tintin. I can see why they don't want to have it in a gift box set that people will be giving to children, so on and so forth. I think the book was available and continues to be available unless it's gone out of print by Casterman, not by Egmont, who otherwise publish Tintin. Shrell says, the Indian comic scene is expanding with new anthologies like Inklab Comics, Comics Verse, Verite, works of Buckermax, works of Indusverse popping up. The future looks bright. Yeah, the future always looks bright. I'm always interested in the present. Like, why isn't the present brighter? I mean, it's like I've been in enough work meetings where they show you these bar graphs of projected revenue, right? And it's like, this year here, next year here, the year after next year it's going to be up here. It's like, yeah, and that's the way it goes every year. It's like, this year, next year, not so much, but 3 years from now, that's going to be that way. So that's the way I think about the future being. I'm not being facetious. I agree with you. I do think it's good that there are anthologies coming out, but I really also, I don't know, I don't want to get into a whole another thing about indie comics and Indian comics, etc. I think readership has a lot to do with it. I think publishers have a lot to do with it. I don't think the onus is only on creators. They're just like, go ahead and create better stories. And how do you create better stories? How do you make better comics? You've got to have a little ecosystem. So I agree with you. I think the future looks bright when people create those ecosystems, when they create that environment for these things to happen. But the way they approach it and the reasons why they're doing it, I'm always curious about that, because it's like those, that cliche about that elephant and the blindfolded men. It's like, if you're only looking at one part and you're only trying to do one thing, you're only going to address that one thing as if that's the entirety. So if you're thinking about markets and if you're thinking about what you want to appeal to, I'll just give an example. There are lots of people who want to publish comics because they're interested in getting into multimedia. They want to make movies, they want to make animated shows, they want to have licensed properties. And I'm not against that. Why should I be against that? But I'm just like, I'm not that interested in it, because they're not interested in the medium. They're interested in the business model, and they're interested in creating a factory which is going to fuel a lot of other things like animation, and that's fine, and that's great, and they can work on that. I, as a reader and lover of the comics medium and comic storytelling, I find not just the intentions, but I find what they execute to be lacking, because I can tell they weren't interested in making a great comic. They weren't interested in listening to, someone who has a voice, or nurturing an understanding of the medium, or working it that way. They wanted to get something that will allow them to have certain kinds of arrangements and contracts, and that's fine. I mean, that exists everywhere in the world. But if that's all you have, or it's the other way around, where it's just like, I am not going to look at this. I don't care about children's publishing. I don't care about genre stuff. I don't care about superheroes. I don't care about science fiction. I only care about this serious literary stuff that me and my other serious literary stuff friends are going to sit around and read. It's like, yeah, well, then you've got to work out the P&L. You're going to have to see if your print runs and your prices and your discount structure and your distribution is going to support that model. And if it does, then more power to you. I mean, it's all a question of that balance. Again, I don't want to get into this in too much of detail, because then there's no, it's just a rabbit hole that I can get down into. But I do think, I think the interesting thing is this point that's being made over here, is that why isn't, and this is a question that is asked about India, is just like, with a population of, why isn't there more? And that's not just true for comics. That's true for everything. That's true for athletics. That's true for anything I can think of. Ever since I was young, I've heard this. It's like, well, with the population, and because population isn't everything, and you've got to see where that population is distributed, and you've got to see who's got the resources, and you've got to see what's important. I've been to schools in which the only sport that matters is cricket. I've seen that, and I've seen that if only cricket is, I'm just giving an example. So I think population, or the size of the country's population, is just one part of the picture. If it was numbers that makes it, then sure, yeah, then we would. But it's about resources, it's about focus, it's about investment, and it's about having a certain kind of value. And I think having a value for the arts, having a value for storytelling, having a value for things that aren't just making money or making lots of money, I think those things are cultural, and I think those things have a role to play in why you don't have more of etc of anything. But again, that's my soapbox. Hello, I'm glad to see so many people I know joining the chat. Do you have any more artist edition books to show off on your channel? Well, show off. No, I don't actually. I think I'm done. I have shown you all of my artist edition. No, that's not true. I have a couple more. I don't have just rows and rows of artist editions. I have a couple more, and I have one in the United States. I've got some nice comics in the United States. They're just sitting at my sister's place. There's some nice editions. The problem is I end up buying things that are really expensive, really expensive here, but can be sometimes found very, very, at very good prices in the United States. It could be because of a Black Friday sale, or it could be on eBay, and a thing that nobody else bid on and stuff like that. So I'm talking about something that over here, like say an artist edition, over here an artist edition with the price of $100, it would cost something like $220 in India. That's the way it would be. And I have found that $100 artist edition on eBay for $45 or $50. So when you look at $50 and you look at $220 for a single book, you buy that and then you get it shipped to your sister and then you don't see it, or I've also been in that place where you go there, you do see it, and then you don't have enough weight allowance to bring everything back to you. So that becomes that becomes interesting. So I've got a couple of I do have a couple of artist editions or gallery editions. I forget which one they are, because one's from Dark Horse and one's from IDW. So Dark Horse brings out the gallery editions, IDW brings out the artist editions, right? So I do have a couple from Dark Horse gallery editions sitting in the United States. One day I will get to them, with a number of different things as well. What are your thoughts on Mr. Invincible Local Hero? I have not read that book out, but I have seen a number of those one-page stories, which I think are absolutely fantastic. They're brilliant use of the comics medium, and continuously inventive and very funny. And you would think that after you've seen a couple of them, you would be like, okay, I get it. You know, it's a gag and it's run its course. But it's absolutely not the case. In that case, at least I've seen more than a dozen of them shared online. Ashwita's putting some more questions up there. Thank you. I've seen Mr. Invincible shared online by a friend who I think was in the chat, who is a big champion, and I've loved every single one of them. So that's a book that I'm definitely getting my hands on soon. I say. What's your favorite Jason book? Ooh, Carl Box or Don Rosa? Hey, that's a question that someone has asked before, and that's a tough one. I might have to recuse myself from that question. No, the artist edition sitting in my sister's house is not the Rabbit Ronin. I have both, luckily, both of the Usagi. I have videos on them, so you could check them out. I have both the Usagi gallery question. One of them is called My Favorite Way to Read Usagi Yojimbo, and the second one is called The Artist and Other Stories, another Usagi Yojimbo gallery edition or something like that. What's your favorite Jason book? My favorite Jason book. Oh, that's a tough one. That's a really tough one, because that's kind of like, what's your favorite Richard Sala book, or what's your favorite Taniguchi book? It's like they're all so good, though. I have a soft spot for I Killed Adolf Hitler. One, because it was the first Jason I read. It really gets to me. It still gets to me. I think that the whole killing Hitler, travel back in time stuff is just, it's a Shaggy Dog story, you know. It's about that relationship, and it's about how that relationship unfolds. So I think it's superb. I think all of Jason is superb, actually. The Hitchcockian stuff in well, it's kind of like Hitchcock and Coen brothers in Why Are You Doing This? Is great. The George Romero stuff in The Living and the Dead is great. I mean, the Edgar Rice Burroughs meets Alexandre Dumas in The Last Musketeer is great. So it's just difficult to pick one. I would say I really enjoyed On the Camino, just because it is nonfiction, it is autobiographical, and it's done in that style. I think that was a revelation. I really enjoyed the fact that I could see that in that style. And I think something like the James Storm book, what was it called, Off Season? I think my appreciation of that was helped by the fact that I had Jason in the background doing stuff on the Camino. What's your favorite breakfast? All right, so my favorite breakfast is, if I travel for work and I'm staying at a hotel, the breakfast buffet at the hotel, because then I don't have to choose. I know that's a bit of a cheat answer, but I usually don't eat breakfast. I'm one of those people who'd rather sleep than eat breakfast, and it started all the way in college, where you could go and eat breakfast before you went to class, or you could sleep for half an hour more. And I am a late night person, so I am not an early morning person. So I've always picked sleep I'm going to sleep until it's time to go to class. I'm going to sleep until it's time to go to work. I'm going to sleep instead of having breakfast. But when I'm traveling for work, then you have to get up and you've got to go attend meetings and wear a suit and all of that stuff. So then I just eat humongous amounts of food, and I want the bacon and the eggs, and I want the mushrooms, and I want the fruit, and I want this thing and the other. So that's kind of a luxury that I really enjoy. My favorite breakfast cereal is unfortunately Fruit Loops, because I am a person with not very sophisticated tastes. I like orange soda and I like Fruit Loops. Have you read Deadly Class of Fear Agent? I have not. I have. So here's what happened with Fear Agent. I've heard good stuff about Deadly Class, but I never picked it up. Fear Agent, I picked up the first library edition, and then the second library edition was just something that wasn't there. So then I thought, should I start it? Should I not start it? And then everyone told me that, oh, it's you've got to have the second volume. So I never read it, even though I normally would be a person who would just read it. But every single person told me, no, it's a cliffhanger and you've got to have the second volume. And that's kept me from reading. What are your thoughts on James Bond comic books and Modesty Blaze comic books? I have not read James Bond comic books, I don't believe. Modesty Blaze comic books I really like, and I have a whole bunch of them, and I would love to make a video on them. But again, I've got to know what I want to say, other than, hey, these are cool comics. I do show my Modesty Blaze comic books in one of my shelf videos. I don't remember which one it would be. Have you read Cerberus? I've read the first 6 or 8 issues of Cerberus. I got this thing called Cerberus Bi-Weekly that was reprinting Cerberus one two issues at a time, but I haven't gone further than that. And I know that High Society is supposed to be where it really takes off, etc. I've never been able to find a copy of that trade. I heard that there's some sort of a ridiculously limited edition of High Society coming out, but I don't know. I mean, I know about Cerberus. I've just never read it, and now I wonder if it's going to have the same impact that it would have at that time, or because of its legacy having inspired so many people and what they've done, am I still going to be able to register it in the same way? But then again, I read a lot of comics that were published many years ago, some like decades and decades ago, that I think still hold up. So you never know. I would love to see more reprints and easily available volumes of Cerberus. It's something that over here I've just not been able to get my hands on. The IDW grass cutter one. Yes, that one is at my sister's. You were absolutely right about that. Do you have the graphic novel adaptation of Marcel Proust's In Search of Lost Time? No, I do not, and I did not know that there is such a version. I will have to look that up. Wow. Okay. I've come around to graphic novel adaptations of work. I mean, when it's done right and when it's done by the right people. I was talking right at the top of this live stream about Shabute's To Build a Fire, which I thought was a terrific adaptation of the Jack London story, particularly because it made some really interesting choices with the text and the narrative. You would just take, but he took something that is in third person, standard fiction, and he made it second person singular, which is like, this, you remember, I mean, just like this had among other things. I mean, there's that desaturated look, and I liked the Don Quixote adaptation that Rob Davis did. I liked the Paul Auster's City of Glass adaptation that Paul Karasik and David Mazzucchelli did. So I've really come around to a decent adaptation done well, rather than just that illustration thing is, I think is what I grew up reading, like abridged adapted version for children, taking a story and sort of simplifying it, but it's not that. So In Search of Lost Time would be, wow, what a comic too. I've heard that the Ryan North Slaughterhouse 5 adaptation is also pretty good. I ordered it and it got cancelled, so I need to reorder it. I've enjoyed Ryan North's Squirrel Girl, and I know that he has those Shakespeare Choose Your Own Adventure stories in prose, so I'm interested in Slaughterhouse 5. Can you recommend 5 books a beginner can start reading and collecting, excluding Usagi and Tintin? Yes, I can. Everything on my channel is that kind of a recommendation. I only make videos on comics that I absolutely love. So if you see a video on my channel, I would just tell people to go to my playlists page. So go to For the Love of Comics playlists, and I have all kinds of playlists. So I have creator spotlights, I have introductions to series, I have adaptation. Why am I blanking on this right now? Edition comparisons. I have playlists created, so look for the creator spotlights, look for the introduction to series, and there's also a video which is the top 10 gateway comics. So you can search for the Love of Comics top 10 gateway comics, and those that's a video I made many years ago on the 10 best comics for someone just getting into comics and graphic novels, an adult, not children. I have a separate video of like 5 good comics for children, but look for top 10 gateway comics by FtLoC and see if any of those strike your fancy. But in general, I would say that almost anything on my on this channel is a recommendation. Are Fables books in numerical order yet? No, they're not. But the Bride Story, I was going to post another photograph of the Bride Story going 1 through 12. Now that I've got the others in there, they are in numerical order, but not the Fables ones yet, because because there's stuff on top of them. So what's on top? So on top of my Fables are a couple of James Storms, a Batman, a Superman, and We All Die Alone. So there's a lot of stuff on top of those books that I would need to move before before getting them. But I'll have to put my back into it. I've come to know about the publication house, the English version of Narayan Devnath. Yes, please put it, email it to me. Email me the publisher's name. I know that we had a conversation about these English editions of Devnath's comics, which would be great, because I've never encountered them in English. Although I know that you told me that they exist now. Would you consider comics as a closed or open system from the thermodynamical point of view? If I knew thermodynamical, the continental philosophy. Yes. Now this is where I will pretend that I know what we're talking about here. No, I think I don't have enough knowledge to answer that question as far as your specificity is concerned. But what is the closed or open system from that? Maybe you can explain that to me, and I'll be able to answer that question a little better, although I wouldn't count on it. What do you do for a living? I work in publishing. I have a small editorial team that I head and work with for a pretty big publisher, and we work on education material, higher ed. I work in higher education, so not K-12 school. So what we used to call textbooks, but of course it's like 50% digital these days. So learning management systems, education material. I'm on the editorial side of things, not the technology although technology is part of everything. So I used to say that I work in editorial, and I think I'll just continue saying that. I work in editorial. I'm an editor. Thank you, Jeevatwan. So, Indie Comics Fest happens in Delhi, Mumbai, Pune, Bangalore, Goa, only once in Kolkata. That's odd. Thank you for sharing the links, Ashwita. Where does illustration stop? That's an interesting. It went away. And graphics start. Illustrated book versus the graphic novel. This is a very good question, because there's a lot of overlap. I think the thing that most people will agree on is sequence. So the sequentiality, and that's why illustrated books, I think, sometimes are close enough to comics, because you have a sequence, you have juxtaposition. I don't think, because you can have comics without panels, you can have comics without word balloons, you can have comics without words. So I think it's a very, very blurry line. I think illustrated prose, illustrated prose puts the primary kind of thing on prose, to say that the illustration is merely, I mean, I don't want to use the word merely, already I did though. It's illustrating the prose. So the prose exists first and foremost, and the prose can exist without the illustration, and the illustration is sort of an adornment to it. Now, I think that's a little unfair to the brilliant illustrators of illustrated books, and I think in many cases you've got. So here's what I think I would say, before, instead of rambling on and on. What I would say is that illustrated prose, you are getting an illustration for exactly what you're reading on the page. So if the page is he climbed the tree, you see an illustration of him climbing a tree, and it's a one-to-one correlation. So the illustration is always what you have just read or part of what you have read. And I think in the sequential comic storytelling that we like, I think they don't have to be. They work together to create a third thing. So it could be that this is what I'm talking about, but you could have text that is not being illustrated. You've got an illustration of something else that you're not seeing in the text, and the text and the illustration together make up what we call the story. I don't know if that helps, or if that sounds right. There are people in the comments might have a better way of putting it, but if I'm put on the spot in a live stream, or what else did I expect was going to happen? I think if I'm put on the spot, that's what I would say is, I would look at the difference between illustration and this thing. Hello. Oh yeah, the To Kill a Mockingbird adaptation was also pretty good. I thought it was a little, I think I needed to read it one more time. I think I need to read it one more time. I've only read it once and I liked it. I thought it was a handsome comic, and there were certain sequences that I thought were just absolutely gorgeous. But because To Kill a Mockingbird is such a it's such a powerful thing as far as the voices in your head are concerned, I wasn't absolutely blown away with it, although I will say I was blown away by certain sequences. But I do want to read it again because I thought it was beautifully illustrated, and I thought it was a very respectful adaptation. Watchmen graphic novel review. I have a whole bunch of videos on Watchmen. I have what is Watchmen. I've got a look at the Watchmen Absolute Edition. I've got a look at Watchmen Noir. So that's one of the playlists you could find, I think, on my channel pretty easily. My email address, you can email me at FtLoComics@gmail.com. FTLO Comics. My New York. Okay, so Samuel's got some slice of life. Although, I wonder if I have like when I think about slice of life, I think of things that are very calm, very not soft focus, but sort of like late summer, coming of age. Maybe that's the mistake. But I think one of my favorite, if we were to become a little more like, because I was looking at New York Diary, The House by Paco Roca is a book that I read recently that I thought was beautiful. I have not read The Man Without Talent. I think American Splendor is a comic series that I really like, and I think it's very interesting way of doing autobiography and slice of life, because it feels like it shouldn't be appealing, but it's incredibly appealing. And the central character is a person who should not be a likable character, but I think becomes a deeply empathetic character, and doesn't it doesn't take a long time to do that. So that curmudgeonly, cantankerous Harvey Pekar, those are some of my favorite comics, and very unusually favorite. I wouldn't have thought that I would. This one, Summer Now of Brown, excellent suggestions. I don't need to. These are fantastic. I'm because if by slice of life we mean anything that is not fiction, or at least it can be fiction. Sorry, if I mean anything that is not fantastical or genre, science fiction, etc. That's so many comics. I mean, even if you look at a low-key adventure, like I was talking about coming of age, the summer kind of story, etc. Those things are those are all slice of life, and there are lots and lots and lots of stories. I think what happens is that people think about comics as being of a particular genre only, and that's understandable given how much, say, superheroes dominate. But I think if you look at all of the comics that Raina Telgemeier has now sort of become famous for upending the comics popularity questions for, they're all slice of life questions. They're all slice of life comics. They're all about everyday life, but everyday life, as Harvey Pekar said, is very complex, and it can be very complex. So it's interesting that I don't think of My New York Diary by Julie Doucette as slice of life, but yeah, of course it is. I mean, it is. But yeah, those are all autobiographical. Well, I mean, are they all autobiographical stories? Yeah, autobiographical stories can be slice of life. What else? Do we have any other questions? Oh my goodness, it's been a couple of hours already. It's time sure flies when you're rambling. But thank you so much, everyone, for being on this little 10,000 subs housewarming. I'm still reading some of the conversations. There's great conversations. Coming of age is not so much slice of life to me. They have a specific plot. Yeah, but plot. See, I mean, slice of life can still have plot, because I think once I was talking to someone and they were saying that, oh, nothing ever happens in real life, and then someone says, no, things happen all the time. Look, you used to be in that country a month ago, and now you're in this country. I mean, this is a huge change. I mean, so you don't think about it as something happening. You don't think about it as something progressing, but geographically, spatially, culturally, time-wise, it's all different. So if you've ever gotten on a train or a plane and ended up somewhere else, you've got progression, you've got plot, you've got a complete change in stuff. I guess it's all based on how you think about it. All right, but I think that's good for today. This has been terrific. Getting back over here, as I was saying, thank you so much for the 10,000 subs, but more than the subs, thank you so much for watching the videos and commenting on them, and commenting and chatting with each other, and being on this live stream. It's a fantastic journey. I was joking with somebody that now it's going to be For the Love of Comics season 2, where each season is 3.5 years, because that's how long we've been on YouTube. But I look forward to getting into making these videos again, and trying to bring new things to them. As I said, I've got 4 or 5 that I'm thinking about already. I'm going to figure out how we're going to do them, how I'm going to get my top-down view on stuff, and hopefully become, return to the regular weekly or weekly-ish upload. Someone had asked me before of when I make my videos, how I make my videos, and the truth is that because of the work week, it's Friday night before I can even start thinking about what I want to do with the videos. So if I have the energy after the work, there's something I do on Friday, but it's usually crammed into Saturday and Sunday, and me trying to upload something by Sunday evening India time. So it becomes a big, jammed full of, like, I've got to light and shoot and edit and do all of that stuff within basically a 24-hour period before the work week starts again, which is why I think sometimes the videos are a little delayed, because I want to get it right, and if I haven't been able to do that properly, then I'm going to take a couple more days, and then I don't want to release something in the middle of the week, and I'll have to wait until the next weekend again to get that time. So yeah, it's great being online. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you so much for everything, and I'll see you at the next video.